Hi, listeners. You're all welcome to a brand new episode of your favorite business podcast, the Tech Your Business podcast. Today on the show, I'll be speaking with the CEO and co-founder of Streamer Live. Streamer Live is a platform which, we've been working remotely practically for the past 3 years since the pandemic. And we all have virtual meetings, we have virtual conferences, virtual everything. So Streamer Live is an application that tries to make this a lot more interactive, a lot more exciting. Because when you look at it, there was a headline I read a couple of days ago where they said virtual meetings are actually boring. And that's true, because a lot of times I either sleep off or I just lose concentration. But I was on a Streamer Live meeting last night to get familiar with it, and I really enjoyed. I actually stayed for the full 1 hour of the meeting. So lots to talk about Streamer Live and about himself a bit. So welcome to the show, Lux.
Hey, thank you so much, Peter. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
So what's originally inspired you to create Streamer Live? What problem were you trying to solve?
Oh, wow. Okay. I think you kind of alluded to the problem, right? When you mentioned that, virtual meetings, and then really, I would say even in-person meetings where you have so many people can get pretty boring, can become monologues instead of dialogues. But if you were to ask me exactly how Streamer Live came to be, it's actually an interesting story. It came from a totally different journey, which has nothing to do with tech, right? So I've been a serial tech entrepreneur for some years now, and prior to this, I'd founded a company called Unmetric. Unmetric got acquired in the end of 2019 for various reasons, personal and professional. Ended up taking a break in the middle of 2020. I found out very quickly I was not capable of taking a break in the truest sense of the word, and needed to make something. It could be a tech product, could be something else. So I think I have a copy here. I'm going to pull it out actually as we speak. And of course, the people listening on the podcast won't know exactly what you're talking about, but I thought I'll show it to you. This was my labor of love in the end of 2020, right? It looks like a children's book. It's not a children's book. It's called Name, Place, Animal, Thing. And the too long didn't read version is make more things, physical and virtual, like a podcast, for example. Get in touch with your inner animal. Visit places that are not just far and wide, that are near and narrow as well. And all of us need more names than what it says on our LinkedIn profile as to what we do for a job. So that's the thesis of the book. The reason I bring up the book, Peter, is I didn't know the first thing about writing a book. So I just decided to attend a whole bunch of online classes on how to write a book, how to edit a book, how to market a book, how to get Jeff Bezos and all the Amazon gods to bless and love your book and all of those things, right? So these are online classes, as you can imagine. Signed up for 6 different courses, delivered over 56 live sessions in a 2-month period on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and mostly on Zoom. And I saw this time and again, and stop me if you heard it too, Peter. It sounds like you have from what you said, where the presenter would say, hey, where's everybody joining from, right? And 300 people type an answer in the chat, right? You've been there. You've seen that, right? People enthusiastically responding. And then the presenter says, oh, we've got Lux from New Jersey. We've got, Joe from London, we've got someone from Cairo, and then ignores the remaining 297 people who put an answer out there. Which, if you think about it, actually is a little weird, because if you were to ask me a question and I gave you an answer and you just ignored my answer, it would be pretty weird. And we don't do it in a one-to-one conversation, but we do it in a group conversation because, hey, how can you acknowledge 300 people? So that was the genesis of the idea behind Streamer Live, saying, one-to-many live sessions, whether it's online or in person or hybrid, are broken. It's difficult to engage an audience at scale. The moment you have more than 10 people in the room, you end up ignoring people. So how can you move people from ignored to engaged? Became the thing that we wanted to solve with Streamer Live. But it came from attending 56 live sessions where I was ignored for about 55 of them. So that's really what happened.
That's interesting. And that's one thing. We always, as entrepreneurs, always have that itch to create, have that itch to make. And a lot of times you notice it's not even only businesses, you keep doing other things around the house, around the house because of that, that to scratch that itch. So I was on the Stream Alive meeting, like I said yesterday evening, I already experienced all these things you talked about. So when you talk about Stream Alive, how does Stream Alive's technology work to boost this engagement during virtual presentations?
So first of all, Peter, I love how you do your research. I mean, here we are doing the podcast today, and you found out that we had a live session yesterday that had nothing to do with your core business, maybe, but had Stream Alive in full demo. So you actually sat, attended that entire session, have a good sense of what we do. I mean, thank you first of all for attending, staying through it, and for the research that you do. So, and I hope you enjoyed the session.
Did.
So you saw the tech in action, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it. And you asked how the tech works. There's a very fundamentally simple but powerful premise to the entire tech. Right? I mentioned a lot of platforms. I mentioned YouTube Live. I mentioned Zoom. I mentioned Facebook Live. And then if you extrapolate and you look at Microsoft Teams and Google Meet and WebEx and LinkedIn Live and Twitch. If you look at all of these platforms, there is just one thing common to each and every one of these platforms. And that one thing is chat. Every one of them has chat. Every one of them has people who are super active in the chat. People love to talk in the chat. So our big insight was, if you can, take the chat stream, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a Twitch live stream, whether it's a slide stream or a live stream, and you take the chat stream and you visualize it in real time and you make sense of it in real time, there are some pretty interesting things you can do. So the tech basically plugs into different ecosystems. Because the other thing you notice is, there are some audience engagement platforms, and Streamalive at the heart of it is an audience engagement platform. But if I tell you that, hey, Peter, I'm going to do this audience engagement for you, but you got to install this app, you got to do all these things, and then you got to download it and press this button and press that button just to tell you what you had for breakfast, that is not engaging. That is difficult. So our big mantra, so to speak, was make it as frictionless as possible. So we said, if people are interacting in Zoom, don't ask them to get out of Zoom. Don't ask them to do a whole bunch of browser somersaults just to answer a question. Ask them to answer just in the Zoom chat, right? If you're on Microsoft Teams, ask them to answer on Teams. So the tech is something that makes it, instead of asking people to come to a platform, makes Streamalive goes to the platform, integrates with it, allows people to humanly converse, online on as they would in a chat, and makes sense of that chat. So if for example, the presenter asks people, hey, where are you joining from? As people type their answers, Streamalive visualizes a real-time map with less than 1/10 of a second of latency and populates that map, because it's intelligent enough to know that people, when they say, hi from Delhi, it knows that people mean Delhi, and it just takes Delhi and puts a little point out there and says, Robert is in Delhi or something like that, right? So it's actually, if you think about it, Peter, it's the same thing as, when you and I went to school and the teacher says, hey, raise your hands if you did your homework. And, 2/3 of the class raises their hands, and the teacher says, oh, 1/3 of you didn't do your homework. You're getting a quick visual sense of the room. So it's the same thing. You're just trying to use chat to give a visual sense of the room and visualize the audience through these things called visual interaction. So it's a web application, plugs into whichever stream you're doing a meeting in, and allows you to visualize the audience in real time without the audience having to change anything in their behavior. They just continue to chat as they did. And there's a lot of other bells and whistles that we can dive into in terms of what else you can do with chat, because there's a richness in chat. There's so many things you can do with it. There's so much of magic you can get out of it. And that's really our focus. And of course, there's a layer of AI as well that intelligently figures out which of these things, make sense, and helping presenters and stuff. But at the root of it, it's making sense of chat in real time. Last point, Peter, for in-person audiences, we, have people scan a code and they go into a thing on their browser and they chat on their phones, so that whether you're chatting on your phone or chatting in the Zoom chat, you're part of the same thing. And we embrace a hybrid thing. And again, we can get into that in detail, but The idea is whether someone is in person or online on Facebook or Twitch or YouTube or Zoom or Meet, everybody's included, everybody's engaged.
Amazing. Amazing. And I actually didn't know it was in person. And it's actually brilliant that it uses chat, which is common among all the platforms. So it makes it easier to integrate everywhere. So you talked about the map, the virtual live map of everyone, where everyone is from and everything. So what are some other things Stream Alive can do in a meeting, either virtual or in person?
So first of all, I got to warn you, we have this weird way in which we name all our features. Everything is an alliteration, so the sounds repeat. So the map feature is called Magic Maps, and that's exactly what it does, plots people as they put locations in a chat. One of the other popular features is something called Wonder Words, which is like a word cloud. I mean, imagine asking people like, hey, folk, great to have you here. How are you feeling today? Or how do you feel after the session? And people put empowered, energized, tired, sleepy, happy, whatever, and a word cloud comes that gives you a collective sense of, the more repeated word becomes bigger and you literally read the room, right? Or asking people in 1 to 2 words, tell us what you do for a living. And someone says, entrepreneur, investor, podcaster, speaker, and you get a sense of who's in the room, because so many sessions that we do without knowing who's in the room. So things like word clouds help you figure that. We have other manifestations of text. So we have a lot of things that are based on open-ended questions. So for example, there's one called transient thoughts, okay? Which is almost like being in a room and listening to people whispering. So if asking people like, what is one New Year resolution that they want to do in 2024? That's not something you put in 2 words, you put in a sentence. So bubbles that show everybody's answers, one after the other, the speed of the bubbles, the velocity, the frequency is all automatically done depending on the length and number of answers. Everything is automatically done. There's one called Talking Tiles, which is inspired by Tetris, the game. So, you've seen the thing, right? The tiles keep falling down with all the answers that people put. And then after the answers stack up a bit of a brick wall, they disappear and then it comes down. So it's funny. I don't know if you saw it in the session yesterday. People are trying to fill up the brick wall.
Yeah,
right?
I did.
And they wanted to fill the wall and wanted to see what happens, but they couldn't, because just as it starts filling, it disappears. So there's this little, we wanted to be playful, make it a little more fun. I mean, I think people take meetings too seriously. We need to make them a lot more fun and interesting. That's Talking Tiles. We've got a couple of other very, very intelligent features, because let me go on a bit of a rant here. Have you been on a webinar where you've been yelled at because you did not put the questions in the Q&A tab and you put your question in the chat? A lot of people do that, right? And then the presenter says, people, put your questions in the Q&A tab. Don't put it in the chat. We will not answer the questions in the chat. Put it in the Q&A. I mean, man, this is like prison, This is like, here are the rules and you got to sit here and this is what you got to follow. So our big insight there was, if so many people are putting it in the chat, there's a user experience issue. People are used to putting it in the chat. And we shouldn't, the tech should figure out. So we have a feature called Quick Questions that basically continuously reads the chat, and anything that smells like a question, and you probably saw that in yesterday's session too, a lot of questions automatically came. Those were automatically picked up from the chat by Stream Alive's algorithms, which is using one of the oldest forms of AI, which is natural language processing, to figure out which are questions and putting that in a silo so the presenter can address it. You don't have to yell at people for putting their questions there anymore. And there are a few other features, but the last one I'll talk about is something called Winning Wheel, which I think is an absolute game changer, because you can have conditional, lotteries. So I can say anybody who answered that last Talking Tiles question, or yesterday in the session, we said anybody who commented at least thrice in the session is entered, their names are automatically entered. So Stream Alive is figuring out that, hey, Peter put 3 answers. So Peter has got 3 answers at least. We'll put Peter's name as one sector in the wheel, along with Lux and Tina and Joe, and spins the name with all the 200 names out there, a wheel. And then one name comes out, and you saw yesterday someone won a thing. So gamifying things, having conditional lotteries and things, that's called Winning Wheel. But the whole idea is basically bringing in conversations here, as opposed to having monologues, bringing in fun and play and all of these. So these are some of the features. And And as you probably guessed, Peter, I can go on and on about all these features, but these are the core ones, yes.
Really interesting. And
Oh, sorry, last point. End of it, there's a full analytics module that slices, dices the data in every way possible and tells you what worked, what didn't, which interactions are there, gives you a summary and spits out a mother of all Excel files that gives you the entire thing as one macro-enabled Excel file. So our previous company was an analytics startup. We have a huge analytics hangover. So this is all about a lot of analytics at the end of it.
Wow. Wow. So that's actually, and I actually saw a lot all those features in the meeting yesterday, and you really should be on a Streamer Live meeting. It's it's exciting. It's really exciting. So for a typical business, what benefits would they get by implementing something like Streamer Live in their meetings, both in person and virtual?
I think there are multiple use cases, but I would focus on 3 of them, right, for a typical business. The first one is internal, the second one is external, and the third one is both internal and external. Right? So the internal use case is things like all hands and town halls. A lot of businesses have weekly, monthly, quarterly all hands town halls. If it's a bigger business, it's a lesser number of town halls. If it's a smaller business, it has more. Bigger businesses have it every quarter, smaller ones have it every month. And then teams typically have their all hands and stuff. You would usually find that, there are a few people who are vocal, most people are silent. In today's world, you find that some people are joining in person, some people are joining online, and somebody is treated in a different way.
Yeah.
Somebody is treated as less favorable because they are online or because they are in person, and therefore it's not an equal meeting, so to speak. So the internal use case is a big one, because if you want to build a culture inside a company that is fair and equitable and inclusive, then you need to ensure that your tech embraces that and allows people to be participative and included. In fact, I don't know if you can see this T-shirt. I'm just going to get up here and show you. This is a mantra, connect, interact, include,
and engage.
Right? So that's really what we enable for, say, an all hands or a town hall or even a session like yesterday. The second use case for a company is an external use case, where so many companies do webinars to drive leads and get more leads into their business and everything. But I don't know about you, Peter, but I sign up for webinars and I don't attend them. I wait for the recording. Because, honestly, most webinars are one person or two people talking through the entire session. You're not really interactive, and the recording is no different from the live event. If you want people to attend something live, you need to give them something that they will only get live. So yesterday you participated in the live session, your voice was heard, you were part of the session, which will not happen if you go for a recording. So that's why there needs to be a difference between the live experience and the post-facto recorded experience. And we think we can make webinars great again in a way in which we, give people a voice, make it inclusive, make it engaging. So the external use cases around webinars and those kind of things. And the third one is conferences and events. Every company has, annual conferences, has annual things which are typically in person, sometimes online. They might have customer meets and all of that. How do you get everybody to get a voice on the table? How do you make it interactive and engaging? How do you make it a conversation? So those are the 3 use cases: internal, all hands town halls; external, lead generation, marketing typically, and events and conferences.
Internal, that's nice. So you talked about AI earlier, about Streamer Live using AI and also using natural NLP also in processing the chats and all that. So how much has AI helped with the development and functioning of the program?
Short answer, a crazy bit, right? We started off with the NLP things we talked about, but then the whole generative AI wave is extremely relevant and useful for a product like Streamer Live, and I'll explain why in a second. But first, I'm going to rewind back to, when is it? 1983 or 1984, right? Almost almost 29, 30 years ago, a gentleman called, I forget his first name, is it John or Bill Gaskins, created a product which Apple was the first investor, interestingly. Right? And then Microsoft acquired the company, and it's a company called PowerPoint. Microsoft PowerPoint was actually invented that time, right? Bill Gaskins. And here we are 30 years later, still talking in all our presentations. And our aim at Stream Alive is to change that from talking to talking, listening, which is kind of what we try to do through these visual interactions. The idea is actually pretty straightforward. It is to give the audience a voice. It is to have a conversation and a dialogue instead of a monologue, right? But that presents a problem, which is that, you're a person who presents, you got this bunch of slides, and now you got to add these interactions to give the audience a voice, and you're not sure what kind of questions to ask the audience. So that's why generative AI comes in. So we started experimenting with generative AI to create these things in Stream Alive that we call a run of show. So for example, Peter, give me a hobby. Tell me a hobby besides podcasting that you enjoy, something else.
I enjoy DIY. I enjoy planting. So many things, actually.
Okay. So planting fruits, vegetables, or
No.
just gardening in general?
Yeah, gardening, yeah.
Okay. So indoor, outdoor?
Outdoor.
Outdoor, okay. So let's say that you're doing a workshop on how to, create a beautiful outdoor garden, okay? And so far, you've been doing this workshop for the last 5 years, and you've been doing it with 20 slides that you talk through and you present to the audience, and they don't speak at all, you just talk. But now you've come across Stream Alive and you want to use it, and you want to say, hey, I want to start, every 3 or 4 slides, I want to ask a question.
Sure.
But I don't know what question to ask. So in Stream Alive, you could say, I'm running a class on outdoor gardening. Give me an idea for a poll. And it will automatically use generative AI to spit out a poll question like, what is the most important thing that one should focus on in the early stage of it? Planting cycles, fertilizer, or XYZ? Obviously, I don't know much about gardening, or ABC, right? So,
yeah.
So it will spit out the question and the choices. So it helps you with creating engaging questions for your run-off show. And the next avatar that we're taking this to is to create your entire run-off show. So imagine giving your presentation into Stream Alive, and Stream Alive spits it back at you with 5 interactions sandwiched in the middle of your presentation to create an entire run-off show, so that suddenly Peter, who's teaching this amazing class on gardening, is not going talk, but is going talk, listen, listen, and the listen is powered by Stream Alive. So that's kind of how we use generative AI to come up with. So we've trained the model on the interactions that we have in Stream Alive. So the prompt actually educates the model, GPT 3.5 in this case, on the fact that we have a feature called transient thoughts, a feature called talking tiles, a feature called wonder words, explains what the features does, and now says, okay, for this topic, come up with interesting questions and options. And man, it's brilliant, the kind of stuff it creates. It's beautiful.
Wow.
So besides NLP and AI that helps us figure out when the person is saying a question, and profanity filters, and figuring out that when someone says hi from sunny Florida, you just put a point in Florida. All of that is stuff we already had, and now we have the generator. So we have a interpretive layer of AI that's interpreting what's happening in the chat. And we have a suggestive layer of AI that is suggesting things. So those are the 2 areas in which we use AI within the platform. And I think we just scratched, the surface. There's so much more that's going to happen. All of this was not even things we had a year ago, but now we do. So it's fast. It's really fast.
Yeah, I have a long way to go. So earlier, you mentioned the businesses marketing with webinars and conferences and things like that. And this is okay. So you talked about talking about the hobby, maybe having a webinar on having a nice outdoor garden and everything. So over the years, the webinars you've attended, the webinars you've seen people conduct on Stream Alive, what are some tips you have for businesses to get better results marketing with these online events?
So I'm going to, you mentioned different use cases there, right? The webinars, the internal all hands, the classes, and the way we put it, I put this in my head is really four broad buckets. It's like teachers, creators, marketers, and facilitators. Right? These are the four segments. So teachers teaching classes on how to grow an outdoor garden or teaching a bunch of kids. Creators, which would be live streamers and people doing all those kind of things on Twitch or YouTube or Zoom. Marketers doing webinars and stuff, and facilitators, which is what internal communications, HR, and everyone does. And then, of course, event coordinators and things like that. I think the simplest thing is actually very simple and powerful. It is don't ignore people. Right? Everybody likes to be heard. Everyone likes their voice to be represented. And there is a slight bit of a dopamine rush that happens when someone sees their input translating into an output. So when I type hi from, Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and a little dot comes up on the map to mark my presence, it's very small. But it tells the world that I exist, and there is a powerful loop that happens over there. When I type an answer to an open-ended question like talking tiles, like what is your biggest point in starting a podcast, and I give my answer and it shows up as a tile that falls down and 300 people see it at that point, I feel a little micro surge of joy. All these are features, but the ethos behind it is very, very human. It is that nobody likes to be ignored. Everybody likes to be included, right? And that's really the gist of it. I mean, people need to be heard, and when you move people from ignored to heard, everything else automatically sorts itself out. If you're a public speaker, in fact, my grandfather was a public speaker, and he used to teach public speaking in the late 70s. He was one of the first ones in India to start public speaking courses before it became fashionable. And yeah, he was quite a character, so in a lot of good ways. And God bless his soul. He would say, right, do not speak for 5 minutes without asking your audience a question and asking them to either raise their right hand or raise their left hand or stand up or sit down. Make them do something physical every 5 to 10 minutes just to get their responses. In this case, it's just binary. It's yes and no. We're talking now about chat. My grandfather died before the internet happened. And now we have all these things like chat and text, and there's so much of richness and color to it. So what he did was black and white, and now we have color. But the fundamental human emotion is simple. Include people, right? Make them part of the conversation. And just to take it on a related note, Peter, I told you that we have an in-person thing as well, right? Which allows you to scan a thing and work for in-person. Now, here's my thing. I don't know about you, but when I pay, say, $500 to attend a conference, I'm not going there to listen to, say, Gary Vaynerchuk speak on stage, because everything he's going to speak on stage is already available for free on YouTube.
True.
I'm going there to network with people like you and others who come to the same thing because we have a shared interest in maybe podcasting or marketing or something, or technology. Right? But we all attend these events, and people are not allowed to network with each other. So with Streamer Live, when you scan that code and you participate, you're part of a chat which connects everybody in that physical space for that time. So for that 1 hour, everybody is part of the same chat room. So if there is a talk about the future of lithium-ion batteries, here are 200 people interested in the future of lithium-ion batteries who've been connected at a conference. Again, with a voice where everybody is heard. Once in a while, they're interacting and engaging with the presenter when they're asking a question. But people are, which if we think about it, in a Zoom session, people can chat, and the organizer loves it because they don't disturb the presenter. Whereas in a physical conference, if you and I chat and we're talking to each other, someone's going to turn back and say, shh, stop talking, right?
True. Really true.
Why can't we chat in a physical conference too? Because we've come for the human connection. And if you can do it online, why can't we do it offline? So as you can see, I'm very passionate about this, and I'll go on a tangent, but I think it's all about just allowing humans to be human and allowing them to connect and not ignoring them. And that's really the biggest step for any webinar. I mean, make it interactive, make it inclusive, don't ignore people. And if you actually do the first three things on the t-shirt, you connect and you interact and you include, the engagement automatically
happens. Yeah. All right. So talking about still the same topic, earlier in the interview, you talked about the quieter team members in a virtual meeting, and we've all been there. You have virtual meetings, you have some people really vocal and answering all the questions and raising all the points, and you have some people just watching, always watching. So how can companies encourage participation and give a voice to these quieter team members in meetings? Because they always have something to contribute, but not like everyone else.
I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you for asking that, right? And that's a very, very, what you cued to us is a very important point. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there are some people who never raise their hand because they're scared that if they raise their hand for something and you ask them to speak, oh my God, the spotlight's on me and I need to speak. And it's scary, right? I mean, I think it's the top 5 fears for people speaking in public, and public speaking is among the top 5 fears, along with spiders and losing all your data and your phone. It's in the same bucket, okay? So it's scary, it's traumatic, and therefore a lot of people tend not to participate because they don't want the spotlight on them. There is the other extreme, people who love the spotlight on them, who love to be vocal and participative and stuff like that. We have both extremes, and very often in most meetings, the people who are more silent and a little more reserved in these contexts are often ignored. And that's where I think something like a Streamer Live can really help. And I'm actually going to borrow a line that one of our users told me after running a few sessions. Okay, this is a guy called Manish Agarwal. He is a visiting faculty at some of India's best management schools. He did a session at the Indian Institute of Management in Calcutta, and he had about 95 students participate in that. And then he came back and he said, you know what's the best part about running a Streamer Live session? And I said, what? He said, I got participation from the kid who was too cool for class and the kid who was too shy for class.
Wow.
Right? These are not kids, they're in their early 20s, they're postgraduate MBA students, but he said, the guy who was too cool for class and the girl who's too shy for class, I got both of them participating because that's the beauty of chat, right? It's not in your face, it's not a huge investment in terms of you getting the spotlight, but at the same time, your voice is heard. It's the same logic as, when you ask in a room, and my grandfather said, hey, raise your hands if you're scared of public speaking. Even the shy ones could raise their hands because they knew it's not an issue. It's just a collective visual thing.
Yeah.
So chat is beautiful that way. It allows both those extremes that you just described to participate without having spotlight or vice versa. So that's really the most powerful thing about synthesizing insights from chat. It captures both those extremes. So again, thank you for that question. It's a very insightful one.
Yeah. So looking to the future of remote work, remote events and everything, in the next 5 years, what do you see the future of remote work and events looking like?
So simple thing is both are very much here to stay, and hopefully we don't have another pandemic or something that forces it upon us. But even otherwise, if you look at trends like commercial real estate and everything, it's very, very obvious that every company has scaled down. Yes, they have workforces coming in, but it's not 5 day, for most companies at least, it's not people working in the office 5 days a week. People have gotten used to a certain way of working and found out that they can still be productive.
Yeah.
Without the 3-hour commute both ways. And why would they go back? And now the company that does not offer it is actually at a disadvantage in terms of attracting and retaining talent. And therefore, most companies are forced to do it. They also cut down their overheads in terms of real estate costs and everything. And of course, there are always outliers. Some companies that work, in both ways. Like Streamer Live is fully remote. We don't even have an office. Everybody in the company across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cities is entirely remote. Right? It probably won't work for every single company, but I was at Zoomtopia very recently, and the biggest theme there was hybrid. The fact that we need to embrace the fact that the world is permanently hybrid. And then that once you embrace that, it then takes you to, okay, then how do you work effectively? How do you ensure that you can still implement culture? How do you ensure that you still have a certain consistent organizational DNA that stands for something in this thing where someone is in actual flesh and blood and someone is in digital flesh and blood, right? How do you do that? So um, hybrid is here to stay, and therefore the more we embrace tools that treat people the same, whether they are online or in person, are going to be increasingly important. And the same thing applies for events as well. I think, as the world even gets more conscious about things like travel and the energy, effort, and the carbon, footprint or something like that, you're going to have almost every event out there now has a in-person attendance ticket that includes all those heavy calorie snacks that you're going to eat and shouldn't be eating, and the non-in-person event that is a virtual ticket that is maybe about one third the price or so, right?
Yeah.
And they're capturing a larger audience. So I think it's here to stay, whether it's events or whether it's offices. We are going to have some form of hybrid, and therefore the faster and more that we implement solutions that embrace both these worlds equally. Sometimes people just do lip service to it. It's important to make sure every voice is the same, because I've been in sessions where, hey folks, thanks for joining us online. Hey folks, thanks for joining us in person. And now we have Q&A, but for technical reasons, we will only take questions from the audience in the room. And sorry for the 300 people who joined us on Zoom, but your questions are not going to be entertained at all, or vice versa. Right? And suddenly the guys on the Zoom or the other one, they feel really bad, right? I mean, it's like, okay, you matter, but you don't matter. And those are the kind of things I'm saying where it's not equitable, where you're saying, yeah, this is hybrid, but hey, I can't include you. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the key for great companies that attract and retain talent, and for great events that leave a memorable experience. How you can be truly hybrid.
Nice. Right, so I've had a great discussion so far. Going back to the beginning, you talked about taking a break mid-2020 after selling your previous business. And so when you look back over your career, look back over the past years you've been building things and working and everything, if you were to meet your younger self at the start of your career, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to them?
Wow, okay. I think I would encourage my younger self to jump onto entrepreneurship a lot faster. Right. And then again, it's not like that's advice for everybody. That's for me personally, because sometimes you stumble upon what you think you want, and then you think about it too logically, and then you move away from it, and then you allow yourself to stumble back on it. Right. Let me explain in my personal context. When I first graduated from college, which was many moons ago, I was an entrepreneur right out of college. I started a company. I pitched to another big company, and in the first month of my very small company with my friends that I co-founded, this big company gave us a fantastic job offer and said, "Hey, we like how you guys are doing this. We're looking for good people. Why don't you join us?" And we said, "Sure," and we ended up joining. After that, I started off something on my own about a year later, and then about a year or two after that, when we had our first kid, I just said, gosh, I need to be responsible in life. I need to focus. And then, yes, you have to pay the bills and you need predictability of revenue, and got into a regular job. So in my case, at least, I think that itch to be an entrepreneur was there for a long time. And then for about 7-8 years, I kind of buried it. And then I let it come back again and did it and started some companies and stuff. But if I were to tell my younger self, I'd tell them that it's not as scary and bad as you thought it is, because now I know, since my future self is talking to my younger self. I can say with confidence that, hey, this shit doesn't hit the fan. It's okay. Jump into it sooner rather than later. And again, this is very personal advice from me, because with the benefit of hindsight, I know that it would have worked out. At that time, I didn't. But yeah, I think sometimes things happen in waves. Like right now we're talking about AI, there's a wave of it. Imagine you start an AI company 5 years from now, you'd be telling your younger self, oh, you should have started 5 years ago. It's exactly the
Yeah, because I actually love asking this question because they say it's always how they put it. Say hindsight is 2020. Right, and the way you said that it's all the worst that can always happen. The worst that can happen mostly just happens only in your mind. Most of the time it never gets to that when we look at it.
So true. You play all those situations in your mind, and so many things. Of, this can happen, that can happen, this can happen, but sometimes it does, but not always.
Not as bad as you feel it would. Yeah. So for our audience, business owners and the like, we've had a roughly 40-minute discussion, more than 40-minute discussion so far. So there might be.
Wow.
So there might be
I didn't
one.
realize that.
So there might be one or two things I might have missed that you would like to share with the audience. You'd like them to take away at the end of this interview. So what would you like to share with the audience?
Okay, so I mean, since you've been talking a lot about Stream Alive and stuff, you know, let me. So I have two things maybe, right? So one is anchored in Stream Alive, and this is that. Hey, if a lot of us attend or hold, you know, sessions with a lot of people, and I know that a lot of your audience are people in the marketing fraternity, in the technology fraternity, people who talk to audiences, who present to audiences, who are curious about things that are happening. I'd encourage them to, if presenting or, you know, webinars or sessions or all hands or any kind of thing with more than 10 people in the audience is something you do check out Stream Alive, try it out for free, play around with it, and experience a different way of conversing with people, right? What we are fundamentally is about communication. And, you know, early on in the conversation, Peter, I told you how Stream Alive came from this whole journey of the book. So, and we talk, and I think you responded to that saying that sometimes for entrepreneurs, you need to create something, you always need to make something. And I think that's true of everybody, the desire to create and make, but it's very easy to kill it because there are so many things to occupy our time, from TV to things here and there. Nothing wrong with that, but I think all of us should have some kind of, you know, embracing our inner creative kind of mentality. So what I mentioned in the book earlier to you, right, which is these four things, and the first one is make more things, and that's one thing I'd encourage everyone to do, whether it's a physical thing or a virtual thing. Make things with your hands, make things with your minds. You know, get in touch with your inner animal, just spend time by yourself, visit places which can be virtual, in person. I mean, for me, I visited 56 live sessions in 2020, and visiting those 56 live sessions is what led to the idea of Stream Alive.
Wow.
Right? So you never know where a journey leads, right? You know, I mean, but you got to take that journey without saying it needs to lead to this point. I had no clue in 2020 that we'd be doing Stream Alive, and you and I will be having this conversation right now. So I just think we need to expand. You know, some people call it a Lux surface area, right? So you expand the surface area of potential luck by doing multiple things. And so, you know, when people ask you, so what do you do? All of us say, oh, this is my job. I don't think we should be answering with our jobs. We should be answering with that's what we do for a living. But there's a lot of other things that we do. So I'm kind of going on a whole bunch of things here, but I just think more people need to be creating, embracing the fact that there is more dimensions to what we do in life beyond just what we do for a job, and that we need to be a lot more inclusive, engaging, and you know, interactive in conversations that we have.
Nice. So let's create more. So when we've talked a lot about how interactions, in-person and virtual interactions with team members, with prospects, and everyone else can be improved using Stream Alive, and I've actually experienced that too. So for the listeners who want to probably reach you, who want to connect with you, learn from you, or use Stream Alive maybe in their business or their meetings, how can they reach out to you?
So if you want to reach out to me, I'm Lux Narayan on LinkedIn, and if you you know, on virtually every network, but LinkedIn is where I'm most prolific. So if you search for Lux Narayan, that's the best way to connect with me personally. And my website is luxnarayan.com on a personal front. And about Streamalive and trying it out, the best way really is to go to streamalive.com. And there's a button there that will take you to a sandbox that allows you to see the product right away without a login, without anything, to actually play around with it and see how it transforms meetings. And if you hopefully like what you see, you can sign up for a free account, not a free trial, it's a free account.
Okay.
And if you have less than 30 people in your meeting, it's absolutely free.
Yeah.
So you could use it right away, have a really engaging session. So we have, if you're doing an all hands next week with about 20 people, do them a favor, do yourself a favor, make it interesting, and it's absolutely free. And if you have larger audiences or you want branding and stuff, obviously we charge for those. But otherwise, we just want people to communicate better. We want meetings to be a lot more inclusive. So there's a free version of the product to try out as well. And streamalive.com is the best way to experience that.
All right. So those the links, your LinkedIn and Streamalive link will be added in the show notes once we go live. All right. So thank you so much, Lux, for coming on the Take Your Business podcast today and sharing with us and everything.
Hey, Peter, thank you so much. I love your podcast. In fact, I listened to a recent one on quizzes, and we're actually having a conversation internally on maybe doing a quiz on what's your engagement style or trying to figure out how to use quizzes. So thank you for what you do. And just like one of your past podcasts helped educate us on some new marketing ideas, hopefully this one helps someone when they hear it. And thank you for having me.
Definitely. I'm actually going to sign up for Streamalive once we are done with this today, because I have a couple of ideas for it.
There you go. Beautiful.
All right. So for the listeners, thank you for being on this episode of the Take Your Business podcast. You get Lux. There are lots of episodes where you learn so many things. The one on quizzes is episode 34. So you pick a lot from that episode. You pick a lot from a lot of the episodes. Just go back, listen to as much as you like, apply these things in your business. So till next week, when we come back with another episode of the podcast, go back and listen to other episodes. And bye for now.